My niece Jenny went through trauma as a kid and ended up becoming an emotional eater, obese, held back a grade, and socially stunned. Her parents, with a lot of pushing, put her into therapy and she was able to heal from the trauma and gain control of her eating. Because they waited so long to take the problem seriously, after she lost the weight, her skin didn't bounce back and she was left with a saggy belly. She had a double roll belly where there's a roll above and below the navel and the bottom one tends to stick out in clothing. Nothing she did would fix it. Her parents are very much anti-plastic surgery, and given that she was a teenager, I totally get it, but she was miserable in her body. Jenny stays with me during the summers because I live near a beach and I love spending time with her. Over the years, she would cry and cry to me about how much she hated her stomach and how she just wishes she could look normal and her parents would not let her get a tummy tuck. Last year, I decided that I would give her the tummy tuck for her 18th birthday as long as she cleared it with her counselor. The counselor agreed that this was something that would truly help. She had done it late in the summer, healed while staying with me, and then went to college. I can't begin to tell you the kind of different person she became. Confident, happy, she finally wore clothes that didn't hide her body and the whole 9 yards. She came home from spring break and finally wore something that made her mom take notice, and I'm guessing mom saw the scar. She hit the roof and started yelling at Jenny for what she did, asking her if she really spent her college money for something this frivolous. Jenny came crying to me about it and I knew I couldn't let her mom blame her, so I fessed up. I am now completely blacklisted. My sister basically thinks I'm Satan, warping her kids' self-esteem and self-image. I should have told her to learn to love her body instead of giving into diet culture. Jenny is healthier and happier than she's ever been before. Furthermore, she was 18 and this is something she has wanted since she was about 15. It didn't lead her to wanting more surgeries. It led her to sobbing happy tears after she tried on a curve-fitting dress for the first time. I don't see what I did was wrong at all. At the same time, I know she's not my kid and we went behind my sister's back. Plastic surgery is a big deal, so I don't know. My cousin Millie is 30 years old and is an ER nurse. Her birthday was a few days ago and we planned a birthday prank, which was leaving a fake snake on her cake. All fun and games because we do this every year to every family member. Well, apparently this year Millie didn't want it, so she was pretty pissed at the fact that we didn't. Now, a few days ago while I was in school, I got a call from Millie during lunch. I thought it would be her saying she's picking me up, but it wasn't. She proceeded to tell me that my mother had passed away in a car accident. My heart dropped and I felt like puking. My mother and I don't have the best relationship, but I still love her. Millie began to tell me the details of the death and what exactly happened to the point I hung up on her and called my mother. My mom, who was supposedly at work as a nurse, didn't pick up and I ended up running to the bathroom. I called my dad, bawling my eyes out and telling him what happened. He didn't understand what I was talking about because he called my mom right before I called. He made me explain everything and understandably he was pissed. He picked me up from school and called my mom in the car just to prove that she was alive and okay. That night, my aunt, who's not Millie's mom, called a meeting to her house and we all talked it out. They were all pretty much disgusted with Millie as she tried to justify her choices, but she ended up apologizing. I got up and I stated that I didn't ever want to talk to her again. Now Millie is engaged. Her wedding is coming up soon and I was supposed to be a flower girl. I'm 15, but they wanted me to be a part of it. So now I have pulled out of the wedding, which is what Millie is worried about. She doesn't want people to question where I was and started to yell at me for being petty. My dad took me home and blocked Millie on everything. Her fiancé, who I'm very close to, ended up messaging me asking me to come, and I told him no, and what his fiancé did was disgusting. He said while what Millie did was wrong for doing it at school, it was just a prank, and I blew up at him. She told me my mother was dead, fucking dead. He sounded genuinely confused and asked me what the hell I was talking about. I told him what happened, and turns out Millie and her mother lied to him and said that Millie just sent a gory picture to me while I was at school. Next thing I knew, he left to go stay with his mother and apologized to me. Now I'm getting blamed for ruining Millie's relationship. I'm not talking to her or her mother, but am I the asshole? For clarification, Millie knew that she was going to get pranked. She has participated in pranks in the past and has never said she hated it. We also asked her close friends and her fiancé if the fake snake was okay, which they gave us a yes and that it was fine. A little less than a month ago, I decided to house sit for a family member and her boyfriend for a week while they went to see their parents. I knew I wasn't getting paid for taking care of the house and feeding their pets, but that was okay because I live with my parents and a week away sounded like a dream come true. House sitting went fine and I pretty much forgotten about it until today. The family member sent me a PayPal request with no explanation. She requested $184 and I immediately called her to ask her why she was doing this. She stated it was for my share of the bills for when I stayed at their house. I told her I took a week off of work to care for her house free of charge. She said that I still had to pay utilities. I told her to go fuck herself and hung up. Ever since, she's been messaging me saying she's going to call the police and tell everyone on Facebook about what a horrible piece of shit I am. I haven't responded to any of these messages and don't plan to. But am I missing something? Am I the asshole? Am I wrong for wanting to have my wedding even though my sister lost her baby? A week before my wedding, my sister found out she miscarried at 5 months. Obviously, I was very upset for her as losing a baby can be very tough, especially because it was her first baby. But I didn't want it to end up being more important than my wedding. 3 days before my wedding, my sister announces at a family gathering that she wants my wedding to be canceled and changed to a funeral for her baby. I was so upset that she would even ask this. I had been waiting months for my wedding and her miscarriage happened so soon. She burst into tears in front of our family, saying I could wait a few months for my wedding, but she couldn't delay her baby's funeral. I got so mad I stormed off. My whole family took her side, telling me to cancel my wedding, even though I had arranged and bought everything. Even my dress and venue was ready, so I couldn't just cancel. I ended up cutting off all of my family, and only a few remained to attend my wedding. My sister hasn't spoken to me in years, and neither has my family. In my opinion, if my sister loses a baby, like a week before my wedding, like I wouldn't have it. That's just... My husband and I have a 3-year-old son together, and there has never been any doubt that my husband is the father. Last week, he came to me and said for the last few months he had been plagued with this anxiety that our son is not his. They don't look identical, but they definitely share similar features, and I see my husband whenever I look at my son. I was obviously blindsided by this and asked him to explain why he thought that he wasn't the father. And he couldn't really provide an answer other than a gut feeling. He asked me for a paternity test, and I said hell no. He said he could just do it without my permission, and I told him if he did that, I would never forgive him. My husband does not have a history of anxiety, but he did lose his job back at the start of the pandemic. I thought he was just stressed out, and I told him if he went to therapy and maybe started taking some anti-anxiety meds, that I would consider getting the paternity test. He got upset and said that once he got the results of the test back, he wouldn't be anxious anymore. He again threatened to just get the test without my permission, and I told him that this would end our relationship. My friends and family are divided over this. Some think I should just take the test, and others are saying he's being insane and that if I cave to this, there's just going to be something else. I think there's something more serious going on here, and I need some neutral perspective. So what would you guys do? A little backstory for setup. My husband died a little bit over a year ago, and he had a substantial life insurance policy as well as successful businesses that I recently sold. My brother recently proposed to his girlfriend, and her family came over so that we could start wedding planning. At dinner, my future sister-in-law pulls out a 3-ring binder and starts handing out information packets about her wedding. She also had a page that listed all of the expenses she expected everyone to contribute to. I looked at her and said, "You expect me to contribute? That's hilarious." And I was met with a stern gaze from my brother. "Oh my god, you're serious." "Yeah, that's not happening." Cue the meltdown from the bride-to-be. Her dad speaks up and says he's giving $70,000 for her to do as she pleases. I get up to leave, and she gets in my face and says it's all my fault. I have the money, so I should be willing to spend it on her because she's going to be family. I just laughed, looked at my brother, and said, "Good luck with all that," and walked out. Ever since then, my future sister-in-law has been blowing me up and calling me names and telling me how awful I am. I know in my heart I'm not the asshole, but my friend seems to think I should contribute just to keep the peace in my family, which I don't really care about at this point. My fiancé and I postponed our wedding because his mother fell extremely ill, and so we're waiting until she's healthy enough to attend. My 17-year-old niece procrastinated in finding a dress for prom next Saturday, so she called me and asked if she could borrow one of my gowns. I work in the fashion industry and have amassed a small collection of black tie gowns that are reserved for events. I was happy to lend one out to my niece. They came over today, but I was on the phone with the client, so I just told them to go upstairs and go find something they liked. My cat knocked into a bag of flowers, so I was busy cleaning that up when my niece and my sister walked out of my closet. I didn't want them to step into the mess, so I told them I'd catch them on my niece's prom night. I went to see what dress my niece took, and I noticed that the white bag that contained my wedding dress wasn't zipped all the way, and I noticed my dress was missing. I called my sister, but she was avoiding my phone calls and immediately drove her to her house to confront her. They initially denied, saying they didn't know that it was my wedding dress, but that was BS because my sister was there when I picked out the dress and it was at all my fittings. Then they changed the story and said that was the only dress my niece liked, and didn't think it was a big deal since it didn't really look like a wedding dress, and they would have returned it anyways. I simply took my dress and left, and my niece was furious and crying, saying I ruined her prom. When I was 27, my boyfriend proposed to me. We both have stable jobs and decided to plan the wedding immediately. Around the same time, my brother proposed to his 24-year-old girlfriend, and they started planning for the wedding as well. One day, my future sister-in-law called me to see if we can go over wedding planning. That's when she told me if I could get married in the afternoon and that she could get married an hour or two later, and then we share the reception. She said it'd become a great way for us to become sisters, and that this will mean the world to my brother. In reality, I know that they aren't financially well off, and she wants the fancy wedding without the fancy wedding price tag. I didn't really know what to say, but I told her that's mine and my fiancé's wedding. We planned it for us, and we want it to be about us. She exploded in anger and said I wouldn't understand how hurtful it is to see the amazing wedding that I'm planning and know that she couldn't have something like that. I told her I waited to get married so that I could afford the wedding I wanted, and she said she wants to get married before she's old and dried up like some people. She called me heartless and a selfish bitch. I stormed off, and my brother called me a few days later. He asked if I could please reconsider. I told him I didn't want to share my wedding day, and I wasn't sure if I even wanted his fiancé there.